The question of Jesus in their storm and in ours is, why are you afraid? At first we wonder if he's kidding, if he's teasing, if he's pulling a quick one. Kind of like one swimmer asking another, why are you wet? How could we not be afraid? But then Jesus does not smile. He's dead earnest. He really wants to know, why are you afraid? He's serious, and so are the men to whom Jesus is posing this question. Thanks to a Galilean storm, their dinner cruise across the Sea of Galilee has been turned into a white-knuckled plunge. Here's how Matthew remembered the trip. He said, Jesus got into a boat, and his followers went with him, and a great storm arose on the lake. Matthew doesn't just use any word here for storm. Just like in English, he had several options. He had words that would sound like our equivalent of thundercloud or torrent or squall. But Matthew remembers the bouncing boat and the pouncing tempest. And so it's almost as if he pulls his Greek thesaurus down off the shelf and he runs his finger down until he lands on the right word and he says, that's it. This is not a storm. This is a seismos. S-E-I-S-M-O-S. A great seismos. We use that word when we describe an earthquake. Seismologists study earthquakes. Seismographs measure them. And what Matthew remembered from that Galilean storm was the shaking of the boat and the shaking of the water and the shaking of the horizon. And surely he was shaking in his sandals as he remembered the storm. He only used that word 2 other times in his gospel. Once to describe the shaking of the earth at the crucifixion of Christ. Once to describe the shaking of the earth at the resurrection of Christ. Once to describe the forgiveness of sins, and once to describe the defeat of death. And now he uses it to describe the way Christ can conquer our fears. Sudden fear. The older translation reads, suddenly a storm came upon the sea. Not all storms come suddenly, but some of them do. Some storms you can see coming from a distance, but then some storms just seem to jump up out of the grass like a lion and pounce on us. And Matthew seems surprised, for he writes, Jesus got into a boat and his followers went with him, and a great seismos arose on the lake so that the waves covered the boat. You'd expect a happier consequence to following Jesus than a storm, wouldn't you? Jesus' followers got into the boat and a rainbow arched in the sky, or happy doves flew over, or the water was as smooth as glass. But Matthew connects these 2 phrases as if to say, get on board with Christ and you might get soaked with Christ. And his not so subtle and not so popular reminder is that followers of Christ get afraid as well. They grow fearful. And that's because Christ's followers contract malaria. They bury children. They battle addictions. And as a result, they face fears. It's not the absence of storms that sets us apart. It's the one we discover in the storm. You see, the truth of the matter is fear will always knock on our door. But the truth of Christ is we don't have to open it.